You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from NVIDIA to VIX and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back once again. Time for another go-around with your Hot Options Report. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are binging, reminding you, A, make sure you subscribe to the full network wherever you get your favorite podcast. And then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. And, of course, while you're checking things out online, make sure you're checking out our friends over there at Quick Options. You can find all the data for this show and a whole bunch more. We just scratched the surface here on this show. The Hot Options Report.com is the place to go to learn more, listeners. As we learn what's going on out there in the market, a blood red day in the markets, listeners, unless you're hanging out in VIX. VIX popping north out there today, listeners, closing exactly at the 20 handle in VIX cash. Haven't seen that in some time. Putting up 1.12 million contracts today against an ADV of a little over 900,000. So pretty hot day in VIX land. The hot option out there on a hot day, 47,000 of the NOV 25 calls. Average price for these, 41 cents. Let's keep rolling out to SPY. Was it a hot day? Was it a banger day out there in SPY, listeners? The answer was yes. Hot day out there. A little bit of downside, or in this case, a lot of downside, translates into a whole heck of a lot of volume. SPY closing today, 672.04, off 1 2/3% on the day, putting up over 12 million contracts, 12.1 million contracts. So a very hot day. The ADV about 9.7 million. And the hot option out there on a hot day in SPY, 453,000. You might have guessed it would be to the downside, but you would be wrong. It was the 680 calls. Average price for these, 73 cents. Now, these went out, obviously, out of the money. Looks like some folks might have been hitting the bid on these. So if you overwrote these, you had to grit your teeth a little bit. They maybe worked out at the end of the day. Either way, just a wild day out here in SPY. Was it a wild day in the S? Well, let's find out, listeners. You know the S also selling off as well, right around 1 2/3%. Closing today, 67.37.49. So well shy of the 6,900 level we were at not too long ago. Well shy of the 6,800 level. No longer threatening 7,000, but threatening 6,700 in the other direction. Putting up nearly 5 million contracts today. 4.95 million contracts going up in the SPX today against an ADV of 4.3 million. The hot option, 121,000. Of the 6730 puts. Average price for these, $4.32. Now, small caps have been kind of the stealth story of this market for a while. I've been saying it on this show, not a stealth story on this show, but for anyone not listening to this show, they have been the stealth story out there, delivering both volume and volatility, and that was the case again today. Small caps giving up the ghost, nearly 3%. To the downside, listeners, 2.8% to the downside in small caps today. So absolutely wild stuff out there. And delivering on the volume front as well, 2.61 million contracts against an ADV of just 1.8 million. So another hot day in small caps. The hot option on a hot day, you know, we've talked for a while about, is it 0 day? Is it NOV downside? Forget all that. It's December downside today in small caps. 102,000 of the 227 puts. Average price for these, $3.43. Worth noting, we have talked about 235, 240 puts, all sorts of NOV downside puts. on recent shows that are now looking a lot better after today's sell-off. So interesting stuff. This time we're going out to the D's 227 puts as we keep on rolling out to the Qs, listeners. Was it a hot day in the Qs? You know the answer is yes. Qs giving off a little over 2% to the downside today, closing 608.40, putting up nearly 7 million contracts, 6.86 million contracts. That is a wild day in the Qs. The ADV, 5.2 million, so blowing through that. The hot option in the Qs, once again to the downside we go, 207,000 of these 610 puts. Average price for these, $1.32. They went out slightly in the money, so not a bad do at the end of the day. All right, single name equities, listeners. Was it a hot day in single name equities? Sometimes when the market falls out of bed, everyone forgets about single names. Not the case today, but not exactly lighting the world on fire either. 643,000 contracts. That is what I would call respectable volume to break into the top 10. That gets us to our old pal Meta. Meta actually bucking the trend today, closing 609.89, actually gaining about 90 cents today. So managing to rally after they were selling off earlier in the session as well. Coming at number 10, 643 on the tape, the hot option, 34,000 of the 630 calls. Now, these are a pretty substantial way out of the money, listeners. 630. Average price for these, 78 cents. I have to imagine you hope you sold these at this point, listeners, because 630, a long way to go unless we get an amazing recovery in Meta tomorrow. As we keep on rolling to number 9, it's the monster, aka strategy. 208.54 off $16.07, or a little over 7% today. So they came for the monster today, putting up 679,000 contracts. For the number 9 spot, the hot option out there, 29,000 of the 230 calls. Average price for those, $4.72 for good old MSTR. So 230s, once again, this is opening paper as well. Now, these are regular NOVs. You have a little bit more time on these, but again, 230. Another pretty, shall we say, optimistic strike if you were buying those as we keep on rolling to number 8. It's the Amazonians, listeners, putting up 740,000 contracts today. Amazon selling off $6.62, or about 2 2/3%, closing 237.58 out there today, listeners. And the hot option in Amazon today, 24,000 of the 245 calls. Again, a fairly out-of-the-money call, perhaps not as aggressive as some of the others we're talking about here, but still a decently out-of-the-money call. Average price for these, 71 cents. If you bought these today, you really need Amazon to get in gear tomorrow. We might have a lot of people rooting for an aggressive return, aggressive rally tomorrow, listeners. We shall see. As we keep on rolling to number 7, our old pal SoFi, giving up the ghost back below the 30 handle again, closing 28.39 off $3.82, or nearly 12%. Putting up 747,000 contracts. For the number 7 spot, the hot option out there, 32,000 of the 31 calls. Now, these were not opening. This was for 23 cents, so it could be someone deciding discretion, the better part of valor, to bail on those while there's still some value in them. We'll see tomorrow how they turn out as we keep on rolling to number 6, Intel. Intel also giving some back to the market gods today, closing off nearly $2, or about 5.25%. 35.91 is where it went out, putting up 775,000 contracts. For the number 6 spot, the hot option in Intel today, we've got the 50 calls, June 50s, going up 26,000 times today for an average price of $2.66. That's a wild one. June 50s, listeners. Can we get there by June expiration? I suppose anything is possible. This stock has doubled. Well, gave some back today, but it did double up to 40 just in the last month and change. So on that trajectory, 50 by the middle of next year should be easily doable. But either way, it's a pretty wild strike and a pretty wild option for $2.66 in Intel. As we keep on rolling to a name that it takes a lot to get it to turn red, but it finally did today. Apple, 272.95, off about half a buck, or 0.2%. So putting up 796,000 contracts today. The hot option, 74,000 of the 275 calls. Opening paper for $1.30 today. So some folks hope, still springing eternal in Apple, listeners, that this thing could turn around by tomorrow's close. Can we get there? We'll find out on the Hot Options Report tomorrow as we keep on rolling to number 4. AMD popped hard yesterday after the CEO came on TV and talked up the stock, giving a lot of it back today, off nearly $11, closing a little bit shy of 248. Off about 4.25% today. The hot option in AMD, when they're putting up 1.07 million contracts for the number 4 spot, it was 63,000 of the 260s. Average price for these, $1.75. Again, this is opening paper. At this point, you have to hope to hell that you overwrote those, listeners, because if you paid $1.75 for the 260s tomorrow, you're doing a lot of hoping and praying before the close. As we keep on rolling to number 3, Palantir, falling out of bed today, closing 172.14, off about $12 exactly, or 6.5%, putting up 1.13 million contracts. So maybe that massive multiple finally catching up with Palantir, putting up 64, almost 65,000 of the 170 puts today. Average price for those, about $1.50. So if you think Palantir is going to keep falling out of bed, you might think that's a screaming buy as we keep on rolling to number 2. Yes, number 2. NVIDIA falling to number 2, also falling in value, off nearly $7 today, or about 3.5%, closing 186.86, putting up 3.65 million. So one of the hotter days we've seen in NVIDIA. The hot option out there in NVIDIA today, 318,000 of the 190 calls, listeners. Average price for these, about $1.15. So again, not giving these away. If you're buying these, you certainly hope NVIDIA can turn around their fortunes tomorrow. And speaking of turning around their fortunes, number 1 today, listeners, with a bullet, Tesla, 3 2/3 million contracts, so just barely managing to edge out NVIDIA for the number 1 spot today. Tesla falling back to earth, $28.61, or 6 2/3% to the downside, closing just a couple of handles north of the par strike, 401.99. It had dipped intraday to 396.34. So all those strikes we've been talking about all week in Tesla, the 440s, the 450s, the 460s, all of that's gone right now, listeners. And people were paying hefty premiums for those as well. Now, it is Tesla. Anything could happen. It could turn around tomorrow, but that would be an aggressive turnaround. Meantime, what was lighting up the tape today? No shocker, it was the par puts, the 400 puts in Tesla, going up 142,000 times today. Average price for these, about $4.25. So if you think Tesla's going to keep falling out of bed, then that might be a screaming buy for you. If you think Tesla can hold this line, then maybe you're saying sold to you. You might be sweating a little bit tomorrow if that's the case, though. Either way, should be an interesting one. Tune in to the Hot Options Report tomorrow to see how it all plays out. Oh, yeah. And stay safe out there.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.